Hi, this is your boy Dale Happy Knowles. You thinking about having too many youth killings, the attempted suicides, and adverse behavior? Afraid that they're considering National Youth Service to complement mother's love? Pause, think about it with intentional thought, and consider where we go from here. Stay tuned and hear what Leonardo Burrows got to say about why male mentorship is the answer to our combruction. We'll be right back.
SumTin to think about with Dale Happy Knowles.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. And what we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative 242. So this evening, we have a special guest with us this evening. And it's none other than a birthday boy of the week who is celebrating with us. We have Leonardo C. Burrows with us. Welcome, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knowles, and it is my pleasure to be here. And good evening, Bahamas, or wherever you're tuning from, whether it's the north.
Yes. We have tuners in from as far as Canada, some in Dubai, some up there in Ghana. Persons tuning in all over. We welcome them all to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. Now, you're in your professional duties, Assistant Superintendent of Police, and you've been on the force for 23 years. And you have a wealth of experience and so forth. But we're not going to harp on your policing this evening because we will respect that space. But we have some questions this evening about mentorship and the like, which we know from your experience is that you have a lot of credibility and wealth of knowledge that you can share with us. But I must highlight to persons that you are a decorated officer. And so we have to highlight that for them. And we congratulate you on being so.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So when we look at all of the things that's happening in the Bahamas today, and particularly with our youth, we have to ask the question that is happening in terms of how do we think our youth views the police and the ultimate authority and others in authority? What's your perspective on that?
Well, I think that our country is filled with predominantly law-abiding young people with goals, dreams, and ambitions who want to make something of themselves and their future. But what I also feel is that the negatives sometimes get more play, and it appears as if we have more wrong going on in our society than what is going right. And if we put it in perspective and in the proper context, I would admit that many of our young people have challenges, but there are much more who are doing great things with their lives and they're trying to make a difference. They're looking for avenues for self-expression to find their unique identity. And this is why I feel this whole conversation of mentorship is very much important, because whenever I have an opportunity to go into a school to speak with young people or work with programs, and I ask them, what is it that you want to be in life? What is it that you want to do? Nobody tells me, SB Burrows, I can't wait to fail. I can't wait to go to jail.
Right.
I can't wait to drop out of school. They always see great things for themselves. They always want to do great things. And understanding this, I'm so happy that I'm a part of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And you mentioned something earlier in that regard, because while some people may have a negative experience with the police, I must commend our officers who go day in and day out working with young people and doing a whole lot of things, whether it's running programs in urban renewal, whether it's running programs at the station level for these young people, the school resource officers who are in these schools on a daily basis trying to bridge and mentor these young people. These are the things that the Royal Bahamas Police Force continues to do to make a difference. Then you have the Urban Renewal Band. And these things that I'm mentioning is just a snippet of some
Right.
of the things that the police is doing to engage young people and direct them towards positive outcomes.
Yes, and I've witnessed a lot of that when I was at PTC, because we worked hand in hand and a lot of some of the initiatives and like, and so it's very effective in your participation as the force with the youth in particular. So when we also look on the decades that you have had on the force and your experience of dealing with the youth, do you think the policing plays a role in the attitude that our youth has today, in forging that attitude?
I think it does because being a police officer puts you in that position where young people see you as a role model. I know when I was young, I had an uncle who was a police officer, and he was
Mm-hmm.
always immaculate in the uniform. He always carried himself a particular way. And I looked at him and I said, I want to be just like that. And you
Right.
find that when we as officers go into schools and we engage our young people, they love, oh, I want to be a police. I want to be a detective. I want to be a soldier. So you find that
Mm-hmm.
when officers represent properly and they provide good examples for our young people, they gravitate towards a career in law enforcement. And then they see us as leaders, they see us as role models, and then we're able to work with them in a meaningful way.
Yes, that's awesome stuff there. So, what do you think influences the attitudes towards society of our youth?
I think what influences our youth's attitude to what happens in society is what they see and what they hear. Because what
Yes.
they see and what they hear allows them to form impressions of the world around them. And these things create perceptions that somehow becomes reality for a lot of them. And if we
Mm-hmm.
allow the negatives that are out there and the vices that are problematic for us, whether it's drugs, violence, antisocial behavior, to control what they see, what they hear, that's all they witness, then
Right.
we're going to have a problem at the end of the day because our young people cannot give what they do not have.
Yeah. So when we look at those icons or those visions that they would see, then what would be an example of something that is dominant across the board, whether it's an adverse youth or regular? I shouldn't say regular, but one who is not a challenge to society.
The interesting thing about it is people in our society live in different realities. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes as adults, we make the mistake to feel that because schools are there and we tell our young people, oh, I want you to accomplish great things, I want you to do great things, that that is the problem solver. But the
Right.
reality is some of these young people live in areas and communities where they see violence. They witness a lot of anger situations at home. They suffer from abuse in some instances, and the
Mm-hmm.
good parts of life that we speak about, they don't get to experience. They don't go home to mother or father who's there to welcome them, check on them at school, to see how things are going, to check
Right.
them and to hold them accountable because they may be a part of a family system like some of I was that was
Right.
broken, but at the same time they're raising themselves and then they are getting guidance from the streets, and that's the
Yeah.
challenge that we have. So if I always see violence, if I'm always around negativity and I'm hearing that you're dumb and you're stupid, you, what you wasting your time for in school or
Right.
learning for girls, then what
Mm-hmm.
do you expect what do you expect
Uh,
for me to do with my life in my future?
and that seems to still be a big one today because I mean, I do with an organization mentorship at EP Roberts, and we still hear that echoing. And when we put somebody in a corner or whatever, don't be a girl or whatever, just and stuff like that. How do you all experience that when you go into the schools?
Definitely. And I want adult listeners to know and understand that the words that they speak to and over
Mm-hmm.
our children has significant meaning. I remember I go all the way back to when I was young and I attended a particular high school and I went to join the police cadet program. And when I got there, all excited to join the program, the guidance counselor told me I was too dumb.
For that presentation, that
So
introduction,
because they told me I was too dumb, I didn't believe that I could achieve anything worthwhile. So I spent my time in school just hanging around as opposed to maximizing my potential, because that's how powerful words are. And you would find that there's so much of our young people that walk around with low self-esteem. And this whole aspect of low self-esteem has nothing to do with just because they live over the hill or they live in single parent situations. It's because sometimes adults don't pour into our young people properly or validate them well enough. So when that opportunity comes, whether it's another male or female, a drug dealer or someone who means them harm, what they see is that somebody is finally paying me attention, making me feel good, making me feel as if I am needed, I am valued, and I am special. And that's when we get ourselves in a lot of problems.
Yes, very much so. Now, I'm a firm believer that people follow people, and our youth's behavior mimic those that they follow. And so we also know, at least I also believe that that every organization takes on the personality of its dominant leaders. And so, and since leaders appear at all levels, then who are the people or organizations youth, particularly our adverse youth, are following?
Wow, that is such a loaded question, because we live in a society that is driven by technology. Technology links everyone and keeps everyone in the loop. And our young people learn so much just by spending time on TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, and they're seeing how other people's perception of the world is. So hence seeing that there is this whole ideology that it's all about money, it's all about relationships, whether it be in intimate partner relationships, it's all about let's see how we could just have fun all the time because life is a big party. And when they gravitate to these things, a lot of them feel empowered. They see that I can aspire to this. All of the things that sometimes we and those adults beyond us may have been sharing and telling them, that go to school, work hard, and get an education. They're seeing and understanding that, listen, I don't have to go to school for 6 years to get a couple $1,000. If I get enough followers, or if my YouTube channel gets enough buzz, I could get paid for this. So you see this rat race trying to go into that direction. And then on top of that, you have our young people who also look for easy cash through running drugs and even some aspects of prostitution. So these are the challenges that exist. So therefore, young people, and it's easy for an adult to say, why would our young people with so much talent and so much promise do these things? But then again, I say people live different realities, and unless we're open enough to understand and see life through their eyes, we won't be able to relate and offer some help to bring them out of that situation.
Right. And so you mentioned TikTok and the rest, and sometimes you also mentioned some of the persons on the streets when youth follow those persons, what is the driving force for them? What do they gain from it? Why they would want to follow them versus follow what a teacher or a parent has to say?
Everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to feel a part of something and feel included. And with our young people, I don't see it so much as them not wanting to listen to what their parents and their teachers are saying. I just feel that it's their inability in a lot of respects, because of their maturity, to understand the value of what adults are saying, what parents are saying, and those who mean well, because it pays off dividends in the long term and in the long run. But what a lot of our young people are looking for is that instant gratification, trying to fit in, wanting to belong, wanting to be like everybody else. And again, if my friends are doing it, if this is what young people are doing all around, then I'm not doing it. Then does that mean that something is wrong with me? So that's a whole mental battle that these young people are going through and they have to face. Being ridiculed for standing out, being different, and actually walking in a different direction when the crowd is going the other way.
Yeah. So this old school view that parents seem to tell their children a lot in the old time, at least when I was growing up. You know, I'm your parent, I am your friend, kind of thing. When we look at mentorship, then mentorship has somewhat of a sort of gaining the trust and the friendship more so than the authoritative portion of it. How do we advise parents as to who might be struggling with their children to approach reconnecting?
I think, and my encouragement for parents is for them to know that parents wear many hats, and the hat you wear is determined by the needs your children have, and their needs change based on where they are in their lives. If you just look at, I'm the disciplinarian, I brought you here, you listen to me, you shut up and you do what I say, then what
Right.
you actually create is an environment where that child feels timid, they don't feel like they could share anything with you. And if your children are not talking to you, they're having a conversation with somebody
With
else.
somebody else, right?
So it's not so much that you're trying to friend your child. You're trying to create an atmosphere and an environment that is conducive for your child growth and productivity. That's what it's all about. So sometimes we get all caught up in children, they all do what I say and not as I do. But I think that when we're able to bring balance and understand that sometimes you may have to be that child's friend, because
Right.
when that child feels as if I have a friend in my father and my mother and my sister and my brother, they feel comfortable, then they express themselves. I grew up in a time when, even when I look back at my life, and my parents, they did the best that they could. I was always one who had an opinion. I always had something to say. And I was told that children are to be seen and not heard.
Not
And
right.
you
Right.
must shut up because you shouldn't talk. You speak when you're spoken to, and you answered when you were called. So what happened for me is I went through my primary school years and my high school years being introverted, not valuing the voice that I had,
Right.
because that is what I was told. Now, the challenge with that is I never expressed myself properly, so that affected me. When our children feel as if I could go to mommy, even although this may be a sad situation or bad for me, I don't have that fear. I have respect because I know that I may disappoint him, my father, or disappoint her, my mother, but they're open and they
Right.
would embrace me. And that's the thing, what is most important about it, because our children years are very short and they will always stay that level. And if we don't catch them and provide that outlet for them to express themselves without fear, I think that we're pushing them out into the hands of somebody else.
Yes. That's some powerful stuff there. So when we look at our situation today in the Bahamas and 212 at large, I look at mother's love as being the foundation. That's unconditional. That happens. There's that bond from birth, etc. And that's to me the foundation layer of mentorship. But then now we're to the point where we hear all this talk in the chats and somewhere on the airways and stuff where people are saying we need this national youth service again, which would have been proffered before, and so forth. So tell us, you support and subscribe to male mentorship programs, and you are very effective at them. So tell us a little bit about why and what does male mentorship mean?
So, male mentorship for me is actually spending time, investing my time, my talent, and my treasures in imparting my wisdom and my experiences to a generation who may experience some of the things that I would have experienced as a child growing up, and providing an outlet for them. Because I spoke about me and having self-esteem issues as a young person and trying to grapple and find my way through life. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that I was a short of patient youngster. I was always angry about life and very, very bitter
Mm-hmm.
about a lot of things. So my childhood was filled with a lot of rage and a lot of quarreling and things of that sort. So much so
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people didn't feel as if I would be what I am today. But it was because there were males who stepped up and provided an opportunity for me, giving me a job that I didn't have to steal anymore, taking me to church so that I can understand about life and spirituality, that I
Mm-hmm.
found myself. They spend that time they invested into me, that I'm now
Right.
able to go back and extend that to a lot of other young men have been doing that for years, because they're looking for that guidance, they're looking for that acceptance, because they want to do well, but
Mm-hmm.
from all indicators, without them saying it, they're shouting and actually screaming, "Please show me how." But what
Right.
happens is sometimes, because we see they're rough around the edges and they have no home training, or like my grandmother would say, brought up see, we
Mm-hmm.
cut them out and we get intimidated by how they look and how they sound and how they dress and their
Right.
attitude. But they want to help. They want to help, and they will push you a little bit. But if you have the patience and if you have the ability just to reason, have that level of compassion while you're still being stern, you will make an inroad. But we expect changes overnight, and it doesn't happen that way. You don't plant a seed in the ground and benefit from the fruit the next day. It's a process.
Right. You know, and I didn't have that same walk, but my walk took me to the baseball diamond, and I was met many persons who might have had similar walks like that. But my situation, I was single, family, home after a divorce, and I found fatherhood and stature on the baseball diamond, and I watched a lot of young men who were very angry with life come there on the field and become unison and productive ball players and citizens as we go. And so I asked the question on that arena then would be is that where else do we find in your walk areas of mentorship that are effective? Where do you find that you are able to affect your skill and your craft also?
So basically, I find that I'm able to do it in my church environment, working with young
Okay.
people. I'm able to do it through Toastmasters because we run youth leadership programs as well. I'm also able to do it in my community because I believe in volunteerism. I believe that Boys Brigade helped me growing up, and that is because some other man sacrificed the time to help me out.
Right.
And then I find the bulk of it being a police officer, being able to go back into the schools, working with different schools, running programs like with Program Shaw, some of the institutions around, and actually working with these young people, that it makes a whole lot of difference. And even now that I'm an assistant superintendent, I don't plan to stop. It
Right.
doesn't matter where life takes me. I want my story, I want my journey to be chronicled in me reaching out to those young people to let them know, hey, I grew up through Gundine Alley. Some of you
Right.
it was saying, oh, I live in this environment and you don't know. Yeah, I know. My house used to leak when it rained. We only had two bedrooms for 11 people. I know what it is to go to the pump and tote water. I
Right.
know these things, but people see the now and they think that you automatically showed up here just
Pop
like
there.
that. But then through our interactions and through giving and sharing and working with them, I'm able to share my story. And they would say, I never knew, because I don't look as like what I encountered as a child. I look very different. So for me,
Right.
that's a breaking point, because that's when the dots start to connect for them, because they can see themselves through my life and through my experience, that if they work hard and they push, they can accomplish their dreams, they can
Same
accomplish
thing.
their goals, and they can make worthwhile choices and decisions that will benefit them in the long run. And that is why I love doing it, because I believe If those of us who journey through experiences like this don't go back into the communities that we came from, don't volunteer on the baseball diamond or at a track club or go back to Boys Brigade, if we don't go back to GGYA, if we don't go back to the schools that we came from, then we leave our young people to the streets. And that is always a destructive.
Yes. Cool. So now, what or how is male mentorship impacting our youth? What do you see through your experience as to how the youth are being impacted? What materializes from it?
I think that there are so many males out there that are just working with our young people. And a lot of times, like I said, good things don't get their time and don't get the airplay. But what I encourage males that are working with programs to do is to broadcast more. Because a lot of times, like even myself, I don't share pictures, I don't post videos. It's very rare, but I do a lot of work out there. So sometimes people feel, oh, there are no males working with young people. Why aren't people doing more? People are doing, but they're just not telling. They're just not sharing. So I'm encouraging persons that run programs, and then you're not sharing to embarrass anyone or to make somebody feel as if you are looking for attention. But unless we allow the good to be actually showcased, the negative will always control the storyline. And that for me is something that we need to do more of, because there are countless of males who are actually working with youth programs, whether it's marching bands, whether it's drill teams, whether it's behavioral programs, whether it's going into the schools and reading to young people, but they're just not sharing it and they're just posting.
Yes, and so when you actually share it, it also helps others who might be looking for something to attach themselves to, know that there's some out there that they can attach themselves to. So that's a great thing to do that. Now, in terms of the impact on the individuals, then why would they get a bigger impact from mentorship through a male mentorship program than classrooms, or even come to the male mentorship versus going to the gangbanger on the streets or somebody on the streets who have or TikTok or the like? What's the big draw for the male mentors? Is there a spiritual bond there that causes draw, or is it what's pulling people to that sort of program?
It's a combination of a whole lot of things, because everyone is at different places in their lives. And working with young people, especially males, I've come to understand that some of them you work with, they are more open and they're ready. It's probably because some other persons would have worked with them, would have tried to help them, and they're more pliable. But then there are others that come along and they are very hard, they're very cold, and they're apprehensive. And that may be in part because of what they may be going through, what they're encountering at school, at home. They may be victims of abuse, or they may not be settled yet. But the mentor who's working with the program has to be so focused and understand that this isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. This is something whereby you have to respect the individuality of every person that you work with in order that you meet their needs without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So that may be on the spiritual side, that may be with you being creative enough to fuse fun and fun activities in it. It may be with you being a little bit different, because I believe that when our young people are exposed to more, the appetites to acquire more in life is broadened. And I say it like this: if I live over the hill and everything I see is garbage on the streets, dilapidated buildings, nothing encouraging, what am I aspiring to? If I'm not reading, if I am not being told, hey, you could do this, and being mentored, then what am I to aspire to? When you take me out of that environment and you place me in a different place, let's say you take that same young person and you put them or take them for a drive in Life with Key, they see something different, or you take them for a ride out east, they see something different. So you'd start allowing the wheels in their head to begin to turn because you
Think, right.
expose them. The challenge that I'm seeing is that a lot of our young people are being exploited and not exposed, whether it's by the drug dealer, whether it's by predators who prey on their innocence and vulnerability. And that could be older folks, older males and females who are preying on their innocence because they want to take advantage of them. These are the problems that we find. But where we have mentors who mean our young people well, our young people do better. They saw and they will never forget. As a matter of fact, it always tickles me. Even up to yesterday, I met a young lady. I was at an event and she said, "Mr. Burrows, you may not remember me, but you were the police to my school."
Right.
And this is primary school. And I'm like, "I was?" So I asked her, "Well, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?" She said, "I'm 28. I'm like, "Oh
Right.
boy, I'm getting young. I've been
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
it
yeah,
a
yeah.
long time." But it's encouraging because they remember the good that you do. And on the reverse, if I wasn't in a position to impact her positively, she would not have forgotten that either.
Right. Yeah.
So we could
Yes.
choose how we want to be remembered in our young people's life because they will not always be children. They're going to grow up and you're going to interact with them later. You may not even remember them, but they will never forget you.
Yeah. Yeah. That sure. I've had that experience a couple of times myself. Where I definitely wasn't able to remember the individuals. But now some people would say that you're an ASP, and you're also a distinguished Toastmaster, which are two significant achievements in one's life. And say, well, that's why you can mentor. Is there any minimum qualifications to be a mentor?
In actuality, there is none. The thing that is needed for mentorship is a willingness to serve because qualification doesn't make you a good mentor. It
Right.
really doesn't. When you're willing to serve and willing to give beyond yourself, you're ideal and you're ready. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with mentors acquiring skills, whether you decide, okay, I want to work with young people, I want to mentor, so let me take the Ministry of Youth Certification Program and gain information, or doing a coaching course or mentorship course, or Googling information so that you can have a broader perspective on it. Nothing is wrong with that. But you just have to show up because the time we take to be perfect in it, you will never grasp it. Because every journey of my service and working with young people provides me with a different level of understanding. And it's amazing that some of the young people that I work with and I use different strategies with 15 years ago, now that I work with this group, it requires a brand new strategy
Yeah.
because the world has changed. Their outlook has changed. What our young people are exposed to have changed. And now we have to step up our game. That is why a lot of our young people are not attracted to the bait that we give because we feel because you're young, you're obligated to listen. But that's not
Right.
the case. But
Right.
when we understand that when we entice them and encourage them well enough, they will run to us because they see us with something to offer. And I find there was something happened a few years ago when Pastor Miles, God rest his soul, he introduced a whole new level of ministry for young people. And what other person saw it as is, oh, that's ungodly, that's not of God, that's not biblical, and that's not spiritual, because they were so caged in one way of thinking that
Thinking.
they didn't believe that there was hope outside of what they knew. But he brought something in perspective for us to understand. If we don't change the way we do things, we will lose our young people. And that is still relevant, that principle. If we don't change the way we do things, if we don't change the way we operate, we will lose our young people. And then we fuss them because, oh, they love hip hop or they dress a certain way. Listen, we all had our phase. We all went through our situations in our time. And so let's just be open when we reach them to understand that we have to make the changes to help them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, folks, you've been watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we're here with Leonardo Burrows, who is one of the chief mentors in his space. And we're here discussing how mentorship, male mentorship, can be the answer to our combruction. We have some challenges in the Bahamas right now, and I feel when we come back from a little break, short break, we will talk in more detail about some of the things that causes us to connect with one another. We'll be right back.
Sammy's Chicken. There's nothing like it.
Behind every scoop, flick, and savor is a smile and memory being made or reminisced. Whether you're at work, out with family on a Sunday, or have friends visiting, flavor will meet expectations in our 32-ounce container for only $10 if you're having a special event as well. Exotic flavors ranging from soursop to Guinness is definitely worthwhile. Welcome back to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And we're here this evening speaking with Leonardo Burrows about why male mentorship is the answer to our combruction. Welcome back, Mr. Burrows.
It is good to be back. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thought your mic went dead or something. But I have a good friend. I call him friend because he's on the internet, but I met him once in person, but his name is Josh Mcdowell, Pastor Josh Mcdowell. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he did the, was it the 211 or the 911 program in the United States that touched a lot of youth along the way and during the strong era of significant violence. But I mean, United States have their challenges too, and they were very successful. But he said in one of his sermons that truth without relationship leads to rejection, rules without relationships lead to rebellion, and discipline without relationship leads to bitterness, anger, and resentment. I don't know, how do you share any of those thoughts that he put on the table?
I share all because I believe that relationships allow you to have influence, and influence is what allows things to happen. And I say this all the time, especially to officers when they have to, because we have to work with people and we have to interact. The badge gives you power according to law, but it doesn't mean that people listen to you because you have that on. However, when you respect people and people understand that respect, they reciprocate in kind. So put it in context this way. I say you go into a community and some boys are playing ball on the court, and you want them to leave. So you look at them and you say to them, "Y'all go on." And you probably step to one and you slap him in the back of his head, and you probably blurt out a few explicit words and you chase them away. What you did is you actually ruined a relationship that you could have cultivated. Now you could switch that around. The same scenario with the boys on the court, and you see them, you have the power as an officer, and you say, "Good afternoon, gents. Y'all all right?" You already throw them off and like, "Huh? This is strange." That's the first thing. Then you may watch them for a few, and then you say, "Let me get a shot." They'd be like, "Okay, you're onto something," and you shoot. It goes in. Now, what you created is an opportunity for conversation.
Right.
And you use that conversation, and you may even take it a little bit further. Your workout, get some Gatorade. I'll see y'all later. What you did is you left an impression that was a breeding ground for you to cultivate a good relationship. So when you go back in that community or there's an issue, they remember somebody that they feel I could respect, I could trust, and who has my best interests at heart. And this is why I believe in the quote that you just read. And a lot of parents feel, because I am your mother, because I am your father, or because I am in charge, you have to listen. Nobody has to listen to anyone. Just because I'm standing here, because you force me to stand here, doesn't mean that I'm paying attention and I'm listening to you. I've come to understand that when environments are conducive for me as a person, I flourish better. I operate better. And if we don't understand that as it relates to our young people and our children, we will lose them. Because whether we believe it or not, there are predators who are going to say to our young people, "Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you're special. Oh, you could be doing so much better. I see you in a different light." There are drug dealers who are going to say to that young man who doesn't have that lunch money, "Take the dollar. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Right.
We can talk soon." And they bait our young people because they understand how powerful relationships are. So until we get to the point where we understand that you could still enforce discipline, but at the same time, you have to strike the balance, because life is about balance. And when balance doesn't exist, everything is off and lopsided. But we choose what we want based on the attitude that we display.
Yes, that's awesome stuff. And you know, if I could add to that, from the other perspective also, is that tap on the back of the head also signals to the, I don't want to say the bully or the big man in the group, that he could use that same form of communications with others to affect his powers over them, right? In terms of, so you as an officer were able to push them along and use this forceful, maybe just a nice tap or whatever, but they look at that, and then who knows what that tap is? That tap could be a rat-a-tat-tat or something else.
Yep.
So you see that. Cool. Now, the youth, and speaking with my sons are now in the 20s, upper 20s. And so some of these conversations would have happened a little while ago when they would have been just out of high school or in high school. But they would have said to me that the adults and persons in authority don't build relationships. They don't see that. They don't see where they reach out to them to ask them how was their day, or what are they thinking, or would they want to be involved in. It's always this, as you said earlier, you know, you're not supposed to, you're only supposed to be seen when you're asked to be seen, kind of thing. Is that a major challenge for our society, or is that just something that was the case?
It's still a challenge in our society, but I'm so thankful that we have actually grown as a country, but still we have a long way to go. And a lot of it still stems from our religious roots, where it is taught us, you know, children, you stay in the corner, you listen, you be obedient. That's your job. But we don't value the gifts that they have, the intelligence that they have, and the brilliance that we need to pull out of them to direct them to positive outcomes. because we want to restrict them. And I believe that's a slavery mentality. When you showed promise and when you showed that, okay, you could think for yourself, it got the slave master irritated, because if they allowed you to continue, you're going to create a problem for them. You're going to expose their weakness, or you're going to be able to rally people. And I think sometimes out of ignorance or out of fear, I think that adults sometimes they do not get it. But I believe that when you direct these kids properly, it goes back to what the Bible says. You train them with and the way they should go, so that when they get old, they will not depart. But then on the adult side, when we quote the scripture, it's always, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long. But we forget, parents don't provoke the children to wrath.
Right.
And that is what we have happening in a lot of instances. There's a lot of provoking.
Yes. And so how does mentors change that mindset across the board? I mean, I know through your actions is how I learned a lot of people change, because they see people and they want to emulate somebody else. Like they always say, people follow people. But is that a responsibility of the mentor, or is that the mentor only has the downward or the relationship with the person being mentored?
This entire conversation, and when we talk about mentorship, sometimes you find that as a parent, you become a friend, you become a mentor, you become that counselor. You, even when you set out to mentor as an individual, you tap into so much more depending on the need that is before you. And like I mentioned before, as you work with young people and as you engage them, you would find that some of them need more than others, because people are at different places in their lives. You as the mentor, you have to determine, know, understand, so that you could actually adjust and pivot where you need to give your mentee the attention that person deserves. However, you must also know that you cannot want more for anyone's lives than they want for themselves.
Right.
Because sometimes we get so hell-bent on trying to shake sense into people that we don't understand that they have to grow into sense. And that happens because of life's journey. Someone asked me the question before, can you motivate anyone? And I was like, oh yeah, you can motivate people, you can do this and you can do that. And I felt so accomplished because I was able to give that what I thought was a brilliant answer. And they said, you can't motivate anyone. You could provide the environment, the atmosphere for motivation. And if they're thirsty, if they're hungry, they would drink and they would eat. But that would be the principle of the horse to the water. But until that horse gets thirsty. So the environment that you create fosters a need to be thirsty and hungry. And you can't get to the place where you feel that, and it happens, I've done this, I've done that, but you're not understanding, you're not getting it. Because depending on the type of seed that you're dealing with, the growth process is very different.
Yes. And I've always learned that, only you could motivate yourself, and only you one could control yourself, but others could inspire you into doing, wanting to follow them and stuff. So when we look at this now and we rule out the National Youth Service as being productive for all, right? There might be some areas that, at least the traditional National Youth Service, that leaves motherly love, which we feel is having a little, you found a foundation there. And so now male mentorship. How does one implement a male mentorship program if everybody can do it? What would be their steps to go about it?
Their steps would be, number one, time. Because if you don't have the time, don't waste your mentee's time. Because a lot of people, they come up with good programs and good ideas, and they show up once and they don't go back anymore. The worst thing you could do to a young person is to make them feel as if you're interested and you leave them hanging. You lose them or you push them further away. So you must have the time. The second thing is, if you're going to consider a program where you're going to mentor, structure. Structure is always important, because with structure comes rules and boundaries. Because the mentees or the people you work with, need to know
Right.
what is inappropriate, what is appropriate, and how far. You need those things in place. And then again, with the structure, you should be working towards a particular goal. You may decide that if I'm going to mentor or I'm going to work with this program, this is going to run for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. And then you're going to communicate that so that you and the mentee know the direction that you're going in. And then the third thing is you must establish that check and balance, because you have to tick the boxes as you go along. Otherwise, you just be going around in circles.
Circles.
The fourth thing is accountability. And I always encourage mentors. If you are a mentor, please make sure that you have a mentor, because a lot of times we want to give and we want to mentor, but we have nobody mentoring us. So while you are taking the time to deplete yourself working with other people, who is actually building you up? Because if you're not careful, you could run yourself dry and actually do harm to yourself physically and mentally.
Yeah, and Dr. Miles Monroe, who you mentioned earlier, always said to us that you can't give people what you don't have. And so you need to get filled up to other persons, and then you could pour it on to other persons to who you want to assist and help in. And so, Mr. Burrows, walk us through the mindset behind some of your engagements. You have this video that have everybody dancing in this house, right? And
Here we go, say this is a rap. A policeman rap. What? This is a rap. A policeman rap. This is a rap. A policeman rap. Listen, cause we're the police and we're here to say no bullying. There's a better way. You don't need to fight or carry a knife. They'll land you in jail and ruin your life. For this is a rap. A policeman rap. What? This is a rap. A policeman rap. Say this is a rap. A policeman rap. Number one, so when you see a bully, you should walk away. What? Walk away. What? Walk away. So when you see a bully, you should walk away and live to see another. Number two, when you see a bully, you can talk it out. What? Talk it out. What? Talk it out. So when you see a bully, you can talk it out. Cause that's what life is all about. If these don't work, then get some help. What? Get some help. What? Get some help. If these don't work, then get some help. Don't deal with it all by yourself. Now y'all got the right thing. You can start.
yes. That's some awesome stuff there. So don't walk us through that now. What is the mindset behind a session like that, and what does the individuals get out of it?
So the mindset behind a session like that is sometimes our young people, they just get oversaturated with talk, but everyone has an appreciation for music. And after working with young people so much, I realized that they love fun things. So what I try to do now with a lot of the conversations that I have on topics like bullying and violence, I try to bring music to it and I allow them to participate. So what happens is I get to share my message because I provided 3 key tips to deal with a bully. That's walk away, talk it out and reason, and then get help. And because they're engaged and because it's repetitious and simple and it's fun, they remember it. And that's what I want them to do. I consider myself a transformational speaker. I love motivational speaking. I love inspirational speaking, but I want to drive my the listeners and our young people to action. And they can only be driven to action when they remember what they were told. And when they sing it, what I found happens is that even if they don't remember my name, they would say, "Oh, mommy, that's the policeman rap. That's the policeman rap," and that's good with me because they remember it or they go home singing it. And I mentioned something earlier as it relates to us mentoring and working with young people. Strategy is important, but creativity is what they run to. I may not be the best answer, but when they see me trying to do 1 or 2 more, I get them to laugh. And when you get people to smile with you, that opens the door for them to listen. That opens the door for the conversation. So all of these things are those door openers that get me in there.
Okay, that's cool. Very cool there. And so that then builds that relationship that we talked about with Brother
Yes.
Josh Mcdowell was talking, and then you could open, like you say, the doors that you want to open, and so forth. Now, with all of these good things coming out of mentorship, there are, as you mentioned, a number of persons doing one-on-one mentorship kind of thing, and then you have groups, which I believe when people talk about the National Youth Service, that we don't really need one of those, but what we ought to do or might consider is registering all of the mentors and the groups like the Rotaracts and the Big Harvest Sunday School programs and urban renewal programs and stuff like that. And then if we want to have something regimented, then we could say if everybody's registered with those and they're attending those, then we could track that. And so if somebody doesn't attend one of those programs of their choice, and that's the key word there, it's their choice which programs they choose, then we could ask them to do something different, maybe a boot camp with Defense Force or something like that. What was your thoughts on that?
I think that if we're looking at a national focus for a program, it would be after we would have determined that this is actually what works best. You mentioned something earlier with all of the existing programs, and I know
Right.
the Ministry of Youth, they have a database. They normally encourage programs to, if you have a nonprofit or if you have a youth program or you're working with young people, come register with us so we can add you to this database and this
Right.
the programs. And then with that also comes a little assistance every year to help you fund the program. And then you give a report so that they can know how you're actually utilizing the resources. But then I think on a broader sense, like you mentioned, if we could expand the database so that we know what is available and what's happening out there, so that if a parent says, okay, my child suffers from low self-esteem, I want to specifically work on them emotionally, I want
Right.
that program. Then there's a listing through whether it's Ministry of Youth, and if you go younger, the Ministry of
Right.
Education, that I could find and I have options for my child. Because while national service may be a part of an answer, would that be the solve all that we're looking for? Because
Right.
there are undercurrent social issues, emotional issues, psychological issues that we have to talk about when we try to deal with our young people. And if we're not prepared to enter the broad discussion, then I think we plan to fail, because everybody is just looking for this one size fit box, and it doesn't work that way. But what we need to do is provide the alternatives so that every child, every young person can get what they need to become productive.
Yes. And I think that the foundation or the pivot point for all of this is found right there in Pastor McDowell's quote that I read earlier, in terms of building those relationships. I think that is critical. And once we're doing that, we shall be all right. So, Mr. Burrows, I ask you this last question here in terms of what should the youth take away from this discussion? What would you like to advise them to do?
I would like them to know that I believe that every one of them was created with a purpose, on purpose, and for a purpose. I believe that every life matter, and every one of us has value that we could contribute to this world to make it a better place. It doesn't matter where you came from, who your parents are, what situation you were born in. What's important is what you do with what you have to make life count for you. And I believe that opportunities are out there if we are willing enough to put how we feel on the side and move towards working to put ourselves in a different position. Mentors are out there to help. Teachers are in schools begging to help some kids, but we're not paying attention. Programs exist, but we are following friends. Oh, you go into that program, but what you no. These programs create opportunities. You have to be bold enough to ignore the noise in the market to find life and make it meaningful for you. And when you do that, your life will change.
Very good. Well, Mr. Burrows, ASB Burrows, I should say, or formerly.
It's cool.
That
Leonardo's
really,
fine too. I can go.
Leonardo, yeah. Some of the old school stuff still rub off on me. My head
know,
might be
right?
bald now, but it's still sink in your head. And you were talking about that earlier, actually, that, with the songs, that at least the people, the children will remember the song. And so they will sing that in their head. And when they remember it, then it becomes second nature that they might start doing those things, which is good. That's how I am with the misters sometimes. But
Yes, sir.
it's been very enlightening and a pleasure to have this conversation. It's refreshing to have this kind of conversation. And we hope it's been of value to our listeners and watchers out there. And that if you are interested, then you could either contact us here at Something to Think About, or is there contact for you or for a program that you would like to share with persons?
Yes, they can reach me. My cell is 242-456-0691. 242-456-0691, or my email address, which is lburrows@toastmastersd47.org. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I had a blast.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you did, and we hope to be able to continue to stretch the minds of our people and let them know that it's more than just the routine that we see every day, and hopefully it will provide an avenue for people to have opportunities to move and find their purpose on life and become productive citizens as much as they could do on their own. So thank you kindly again, and everybody out there in social media. Madam Producer, you got that video for me, that last one? All righto. Till next week, thank you kindly again. ACP Burrows will be there.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative, 242.